Hi, and welcome to the Crit Hit Wild podcast, where we cover all things Marvel Crisis Protocol, and we do a new character every week. This week, we're going to be talking about Corvus Glaive, and I'm your host, Fred.
I'm Brad.
I'm Borka.
And I'm Brandon. Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey, guys, how's it going? We have a different crew today. We have Borka and the person that we've always referred to as the other Brandon, because we're trying not to use last names as much as possible. And they are joining us today because the two of them joined us on a tournament at the BECC final qualifier at Akron Brew Brawl in Missing Falls Brewery. How are the two of you doing? How are you doing today, Borka?
Oh, just fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
I'm glad
I
to
got
hear that.
I got the taste of spit out of my mouth from the tournament yesterday, so I'm feeling better.
Yeah. How about you, Brandon? How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. It was a long trip up there, so I got up at like 3:30 in the morning to drive up to meet you guys, and I got home at about 1 in the morning. It was a long day.
Yeah, so you had a much longer day than I did, and I was exhausted at the end of this thing. I was passing out before I even got home. Well, I'm glad you two joined us, and I'm glad you're joining us here today to discuss Corvus Glaive and the tournament that we just had. But before we do that, I want to shout out the tournaments that are coming up in the near future. Coming up later in March, on March the 29th, there is a tournament at Fabricators Forge in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That is run by Bryce, and this is an affiliation tournament, so your entire list must be affiliated. Those are always fun, and Bryce always runs a good event, so head on up that way if you're in the area. Then coming up later in April, on April the 19th, there's a tournament at Lost Legion Games and Comics in South Charleston, West Virginia. That is our local game store, and it's usually a pretty small affair, but we always welcome new people joining us, and that's it. I always like it when people from out of town come to our store to play some games, because we really need all the people playing we can get.
And and
Then coming up,
as and as you guys will hear later, we're pretty good at the game, so it's a good experience.
that is true. That is true. And then on the 26th of April, there is a tournament at Recess Games in North Olmsted, Ohio. That is Steven's former store, and is the store of a couple of our friends who participated in the BECC. So if you are in the area around North Olmsted, head on over to Recess Games. I've been there before. It is a fantastic store. It is a great space, and I really enjoyed going there. Okay, there are also tournaments in South Carolina that are coming up. There's one on April the 12th that I don't know the name of the store. So, and Steven is the person who I was going to ask, and he is unfortunately not on here today. So I will get with him in the near future to get that information before it becomes before that event actually happens. All right. Now that I've gotten that out of the way, let's talk about our experience yesterday at the Akron Brew Brawl. It was a fantastic event. I really like the Akron Brew Brawl. It's a well-run event. The person who's in charge, his name is Drew, and he makes it a fun event. It is well managed. They feed us, which very few events actually do. It is well worth the ticket price. Everyone should go to Missing Falls Brewery every time there's an Akron Brew Brawl. Do you guys agree?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a great
Yeah.
event. The space was large enough to have, the MCP going on with, I think there was War Machine and 40K going on at the same time in the same room, and still had room for food, and the bar and the ticket table. Everything it was really laid out really well.
Yeah, they did a good job too. I went to the first one they had last year at the same time, and they kind of asked for feedback, and I know that it wasn't like cramped, but we said, a little more room at the tables, and then this time the tables were much bigger. You had plenty of room to put all your doodads on the table. All the tables had chairs. You could put your bag with you. So, I mean, it wasn't bad the first time, and they took that suggestions and they took it to the next level. So it was an excellent event for MCP.
Indeed, indeed. Let's get right into it, I think. It was a 4-rounder. It was a 4-round event, and I think we should go each of us per round. So we'll start with my round 1. So the folks from Pittsburgh, quite a few of them came by as well, and they have a very strong meta. And one of their best players is a gentleman named Les. And suffice it to say, he was my round 1 opponent. I don't think I have ever beaten Les in a game of MCP. I don't think it's ever happened. And so I had, I was feeling real low about my chances in this game. We drew his extract of hammers and my secure of cosmic invasion. And we were playing on a threat value of 18. And he was playing Midnight Suns, a bad matchup for me. He was playing under Elsa Bloodstone. He also brought Man-Thing. He had Silver Sable. He had Encantu the Living Mummy. And he had one more model who I am currently forgetting. But then I brought Miles Morales. I brought Spectacular Spider-Man. And Agent Venom, Rhino, and one more model who I think died very quickly, so I don't remember exactly who that was. This game, I played the hell out of. I played the hell out of this game. I knew that Elsa Bloodstone was going to try and use her ranged attacks and the boom. I don't remember. I think it's a boom or blast to damage people who are within range 2 of the targets. So no model was ever within range 2 of another model. That's kind of what I told myself going into it, and I pretty well stuck to that. I also used Agent Venom to great success. Agent Venom carried me through this game. And we battled it out. We had a big slogging fight, and we were bouncing back and forth. He had Dr. Voodoo. That was the other model that he had, because he kept using Brother Daniel to make me drop all the hammers that I'd pick up, and then I would daze the person who had, or I would make the person drop them myself using Miles Morales. And we fought, and at the end of round 5, we both tied at 16. This game was going as well as it could possibly go for me. Then he dazed my Agent Venom with Man-Thing, grabbed 3 hammers, and hopped over a wall. And I thought to myself, that's it, that's game. There's no way I can come back from that. But Rhino, the hero that he is, stampedes across the board, throws the building at Man-Thing, and then attacks Man-Thing, and dazes him, steals the 3 hammers, and wins me the game. I win my round 1 against Les. This is an upset, and I felt incredible doing it. Les played a fantastic game. He is an excellent opponent. And this was just a case where I spiked when I needed to spike, and he missed when I needed him to miss. And I'm really happy about the way that this game played out. But yeah, that was my round 1. That is a win for Fred. I got the final score was 22 to 17. Really high scoring match. All right, so that was my round 1. Borka, why don't you talk about your round 1?
So round 1 was when my day began poorly. But now, in all seriousness, I played Nick. He was playing Shield. I was, of course, playing Master of the World, Red Skull, Cabal all day. And round 1, we ended up on Legacy Virus and Deadline to Destruction. And Deadline was his, so I felt pretty good about the scenarios. I was like, well, I want to play attrition, so this should work out. We ended up on 19 Threat. I don't remember exactly who I had in my list. I know Red Skull Ultron and Amazing Spider-Man were in there, and I had priority, so I was able to get a safe grab with Amazing early on in the game. I will say, Deadline, one of the new scenarios there is interesting. It makes who is holding your extracts and when it adds another layer of thought to it. It's pretty cool. Like I had Amazing with an extract on my back point. He had Namor center in the board, and he was in a position where he was going to be able to charge, get an attack off with Namor, then he could interact and either I drop it or take a free piece of chip damage, and then he could have made another attack. So I didn't like the idea of that. So it was an interesting layer and something you got to kind of think about throughout the day. Um, Nick's a good player. This is the second time I've played him. Both were really close games. Shield is always a good faction to go into. I think they play scenario really really well, and they can also attrition. But I felt top of turn two that it was going to go my way. I activated Red Skull, and in his activation, he dazed Spectacular Spider-Man and Zemo. And so I thought, oh, okay, this is a big swing for me. And it was doing pretty well. The score stayed close, but then things went south in a big way. Um, and my last kind of position, I had two extracts on Amazing and had gone all the way to the right side of the board. He could only get to him with Namor. He wasn't in a position to use the make me drop his spender, So he just kind of made an attack at Amazing. Amazing survived, and then into the next round, if he was able to get, because Namor had one of the other legacies, and Amazing had the other two. If he was able to get them all on Namor, there was no way I could beat him because Namor would die, and he would have gone to 18, I think, something like that. So I went first. I placed with Spider-Man, made the 7 dice attack, spiked well, ended up putting 6 on him, left him on 1 health. Spider-Man then whiffed and didn't do the last damage. Namor had already spendered and had, all the secures off of Spider-Man. And so I left him at 1. I was like, all right, we're in a pretty good spot. We're down in the bottom right side of the board. I knew that I could move Ultron down. Ultron would be in range to do a spinner attack into him. I thought, 8 physical. Nick had smartly held on to his his brace from earlier in the game. So I moved down. I did an Extinction Protocol with the Red Skull leadership, and I could not do 1 point of damage to him. So he survived that, and then I was kind of like, man, this is probably a game. I had one last chance. Red Skull was all the way on the left side of the table and had got impact webbing pushed kind of far back. And so I reshaped the world, or nothing's out of his reach, one of those. Place 3, moved. I was out of range 4 to shoot him, so I had to move again and hope that I would be close enough to Amazing Spider-Man to use some of his energy to throw a size 3 building at him, and I was about a half an inch away from it. So that was my last chance to kill him. He easily scored those 6 plus the other points at that, and what was a close game ended up going 21-9 in his favor. And I was kind of like, all right, this is the curse of the Brew Brawl for me. I always have these crazy little tight dice rolls that I miss, but it was a really good game. We both just kind of let out a big like, oh man, what a game, and shook hands, and that was my round 1. It was a nail biter, but not by looking at the score.
Yeah, that sucks. That's a heartbreaker. When you have a huge attack and you cannot roll 1 success. That
Right.
is.
And I've said before, it's like the marble dice are marble dice. And a game like this, I'm fine because it wasn't that either of us really had too crazy dice. Like we're both good at attrition, and we're both doing attrition things, and overall it was pretty solid. And so when it came down to that, it was just like one crazy shot. I wasn't able to get him with the protocols because Spider-Man, I kind of say, well, his first attack spiked, his second attack whiff, so just cut those in half. So between 2 attacks, Spider-Man put 6 on him, right? Say like 3 and 3. That makes sense to
Yeah.
me. But then when the protocol missed, at that point, it wasn't like, not bad dice. It was just bad luck on that roll, and it was crucial at that point. So it was a game where it was like, yeah, that hurt me, but I didn't mind it. You know what I mean? It wasn't a crazy dice game the whole time. It was just, hey, that was a missed opportunity. It is what it is. Good game.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Borka. I'm sorry to hear about that. But let's move on to Brandon. Why don't you discuss what happened in your round one?
In round one, I was up against a guy named Kurt. He was playing Inhumans. We were doing a 17 threat on the alien ship and Extremis. I was really happy we were doing 17 threat as my 4 core models. Playing Black Order. So I've got Thanos with the Power Stone and the Mind Stone and Corvus Glaive, Proxima, and I put Nebula in there to take me up to 17. This perfect little 4-man squad to smash a bunch of teeth in. And he, looking at his list now, he was going Black Bolt, Medusa, Shang-Chi, and Quicksilver, which is actually 16 points. So I think he was playing a point down in that game. But all of those characters are very good at what they do. Black Bolt will destroy you, Shang-Chi will not be destroyed, and Medusa will throw you around the board, and Quicksilver will steal everything. So it was very tough. I knew right out of the gate that I had to get a handle on Quicksilver before he snatched up an extract and got away from me, because I can't chase him around the board and be efficient. So that was my primary goal, just kind of split up a flank and try and chase down Quicksilver, which I did, but it was very hard. It took a couple turns to finally get him. At that point, I think where he's already playing a point down, and now he's down 3 more points, he's on his back foot. So I sent Corvus Glaive off to the flank where Black Bolt was, kind of as a sacrifice to keep Black Bolt away from everybody else. And, when Corvus Glaive is sacrificed, he's still, he's going to get hit. He's going to build up some power. He's going to clap back pretty hard. And I was able to flip Black Bolt, flip Shang-Chi before he went down. So Corvus Glaive, even without the Reality Stone, is still a monster, an absolute monster. What's so good about Black Order, they really, really punch above their weight. Nebula, I know is not Black Order, but she punches like a 4 when she's a 2. Corvus Glaive can hit like a 6 threat. Thanos can just go crazy, adding dice to his cosmic blast. So it was in my favor once I got him on his back foot. I just started picking on one model and just punish it and move on. And it was still a tight game. The first 2 or 3 turns, it was tied, or he was ahead by 1 or 2 points. But then I slowly started to pick that ground up by knocking out his guys and getting victory points from Thanos' leadership. And I think it was on the 5th turn, I was able to jump ahead, and I win that one 18-13. But it was really cool seeing Inhumans. I've only ever played against them one time at like a small 2-round tournament. I played 1 game against them, and I'm really excited to see their new models coming out as well. But Kurt was a really good opponent. I just was able to bully a couple people and get the advantage in that game.
I think I didn't bring this up, and I probably should have before we talked. Everyone out there, Brandon is the number 3 Black Order player in the world, according to Longshanks. And we've all played against him many times now, and his Black Order game is absolutely top tier. If you are not coming correct against him, he will pick you apart. He will isolate your models and murder them and win the game through just attrition and getting VPs every time he kills somebody. Like, Brandon, you are an excellent player at Black Order, and it's great to have you on the podcast to discuss this.
Well, yeah, I love their play style. There's some obvious things out there that I'm terrified of, like web warriors, cough cough. Trying to chase people around is really hard for me. But yeah, if you want to come to the middle of the board, I'll meet you there.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Brandon. And Brad, why don't you discuss your round one?
All right, so I played against Bryce, the guy who runs the Pittsburgh tournaments on a regular basis and is the regional director for the BECC. I was trying to think of the title he gave himself. I think it's regional director. He's playing Avengers, which is the right call. I think Bryce, that's like his wheelhouse. He's really good. I was expecting Sam, but he ended up playing Steve Rogers. I was playing my Apocalypse list. He won priority. We ended up on Guardian, Save Empress, and Hammers. All three of my extracts are 18 points, which is the threat level I would prefer to play at. 18 points. So I picked 18. I played the standard 18 points I would normally play in any random matchup. Apocalypse, Colossus, Wolverine, Psylocke. Wolverine War, Colossus Famine, Colossus Pestilence, Psylocke Famine. There we go. He played Steve Rogers Hulk, Namor, Iron Man, 2-Point Black Widow. Isn't that right? No, 2-Point Black Widow was a different round. I don't remember what. He had to have another model, right? 6, 10, 13. No, that's 18. He had 4 models as well. After the first round, on one flank was Wolverine and Colossus versus Iron Man and Namor. And on the other flank, it was Hulk and Captain America versus Psylocke and Apocalypse. He played really cagey with Hulk, which kept Apocalypse from attacking him a whole bunch, because Apocalypse can take out a Hulk if he's given the chance. On the other flank, Bryce ended up doing 10 damage to Colossus without dazing him because Wolverine patched him up, and a similar amount of damage to Wolverine without dazing him because of healing factor. And I think I ended up KOing Iron Man, and Namor got dazed over there. So that flank was pretty well won on my side because of just my model surviving. Bryce made it a game over there by consistently hitting the pay to flip, needing 2 or 3 successes, and getting it every time. So I had to keep flipping it back. And then at the end of the game, he jumps, double attacks Apocalypse. The first attack does like 3 or 4 damage, and then it was probably 3. And then the second attack's gonna absolutely destroy Apocalypse, the only model I have left to activate. And I recalibration matrixed I immortal servants, really. And we re-rolled into he got 2 successes and my 1 block, or he got 3 and I got 2 blocks. One of those 2 scenarios. So Apocalypse gains a power off of this interaction. And then I move Apocalypse onto the point and flip it. And that gives me 7 out of 8 points for the round and gets me just to 16 points for the win. So managed to finish that round, and then we didn't have to play another round where Hulk was going to get to go first and daze Apocalypse, and then Namor was going to be fully healthy flipped, and it was probably going to go bad for me, but I pulled it out right there.
All right. Well done, Brad. Bryce is a hell of an opponent, so
Yes.
this was a good first round for you. All right. So that was our round one. Let's move on to round two. My opponent in round two was another one of the really, really strong players from Pittsburgh, Andrew Savage, someone who I've played many times and who is an excellent opponent, and who is also one heck of a good player. Like he plays sometimes these off ideal lists and does exceptionally well with them, just to show how good of a player he is.
Fred,
And
just to jump on that, he was once the number one unaffiliated player in the world for
right
for a very long time.
Yeah. He was playing a list that was unaffiliated intentionally, and he was so good with it that he was the best player who was doing that.
Yeah.
So this, I was flying a little high off my first round, so I was like, well, I guess I'm gonna get put in my place now. We drew Senators and one of the new crises, Wedding Party. That's the one that's like Mayor Fisk, but it's a little further apart. And instead of doing a damage and stunning people, it just saps one power from them. So it's a lot more okay to play, a lot less devastating. This game started off strong for me because we drew my Senators, and that is a good scenario for me going into this. Oh, I should say, he was playing New Mutants into this match, and we were playing at 20 threat. So he brought Magic, Cable, he brought Warlock, Sunspot, and Abomination, and that was terrifying. I brought on my list Rhino, I brought Spider-Woman, and I brought Miles, Spectacular Spider-Man, Black Cat, and Ghost Spider. That was I went 6 wide to his 5 wide. So in a way, I had a little bit of an advantage there. The first round went pretty normal. I don't think we did much of anything. He may have gotten one attack into one of my people, but it didn't daze them. So the first round was normal. We both grabbed Senators, and we both took. I think we tied on one of the wedding parties, and I scored the other wedding party. Just because I was wider than he was. Round two, he goes in hard with Sunspot. Sunspot whiffs. Sunspot, in fact, will whiff every attack this game, it felt like. And that's just unfortunate. That's just how it played out for him. And I sort of shifted everybody to my right wedding party and abandoned the side that had Abomination on it, just to force him to come to me with Abomination. And this round, I think he scored 5 to my 5. I don't remember exactly how many I scored, but he closed the gap with me. And then, okay, going into round 3, I was holding my own. I'm trying to stay alive. Cable is doing damage, and Abomination makes his way over to my right, and he is able to daze Spider-Woman over there. This round, I hold my own. I keep alive long enough, like just through good defense dice and through Sunspot whiffing every attack he can, and I make it through the round okay. I don't get completely annihilated. At the top of round 4, I use Double Agent on Warlock, who's over there on my left by himself. And so he's not going to be relevant to the fighting, I figure. And my first activation is Spider-Woman. Spider-Woman makes her way all the way over there to that side of the flank, just so that I have someone over there to fight, someone over there to maybe take out Warlock. Everything happens. We continue to fight. He activates Abomination and has an underwhelming activation, I think. I think that Abomination kind of whiffs in his attacks. And then I activate Rhino. Rhino uses this as a robbery to throw Abomination off the point and to make him drop his Senator. So Abomination is not relevant for this round anymore. That's good. I then am able to again keep myself in the game on the right, and it all comes down to the left-hand side where Warlock attacks Spider-Woman. He puts 2 attacks into her, and she survives with 1 health left. And had he dazed her, that would have been game. He would have won the game, no question. But he doesn't. And because I put double agent out on him, I get to activate Spider-Woman again. And Spider-Woman proceeds to completely daze and take out Warlock. I score his senator and that wedding party, and that is enough points to take me into the lead and to win the game. And I win this game 18-15 just because of that coup over there on that side. That is a second win against an excellent opponent for me. I'm flying real high after this game. This was a case where all the dice rolls kind of helped me. I don't feel like I spiked super hard, but I feel like my opponent whiffed at a couple really clutch points, and I played it very well. I did very well this game. Also, Senators really helped me. Senators is a great crisis for Web Warriors because I can move without having to do a move action with most of my models. All right, let's move on to Borka. Why don't you talk about your round 2?
Yeah, one thing I'll touch on something you just said. I think that's what separates, I think, your better MCP players from your newer people who are getting their feet underneath them, is that if your opponent isn't getting dice here and there where he needs them, and you see it, and then you can capitalize on it, I think that's when you're playing a good player. Because you'll have games where you're playing somebody who's newer, and you're like, oh man, I whiffed that, that's bad, and then he doesn't punish you for it, or doesn't realize how to. And so I think as you get better, you start to see it's like, ooh, that roll hurt him, so I'm going to be able to take advantage of it on this turn. But yeah, so my round 2, it was kind of a swing back the other way. I played a guy, John D. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name. Super nice guy, really really chill, excellent quality opponent. He ended up winning best sportsman for our tournament, and I completely understand it. I mean, he was really nice guy. He was playing A-Force. I was playing, of course, Master of the World, and we ended up on 20 threat. It was Montesi Formula and Superpowered Scoundrels. He had a pretty mean little team. It was She-Hulk, Medusa, Gamora, Shuri, and Wasp. Long story short, though, he special deliveried midway through his turn 1 and dropped She-Hulk down, and she punched into my Ultron grunts and did not kill them. And then ended up going into, I think once she activated, she fought Shang-Chi and somebody else, and just didn't really put a ton of damage out. And my last activation of turn 1, I moved Red Skull up to get the bottom left secure, and I took a shot at her, and I ended up putting 4 or 5 damage on her. I want to say 4, and I was like, okay, I might be able to do this. I had priority going into turn 2, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to go for it. So she was at 16. I went ahead and put Dark Rain on her. Red Skull paid for it, and I activated my Ultron. The bots ended up putting 8 damage on them with their 2 shots, so that was kind of the beginning of the end for her. After they shot, I then went with Ultron and was able to extinction protocols into her, smacked her really hard, threw her into my grunts, which blew up the grunts, put a damage on her, put a damage on Medusa and Gamora, so Ultron got 3 power from that. I was then able to throw a piece of terrain at her, which put my grunts back out. I put them in the same spot, and with that extra power, I also got the explosion, which put more damage on Gamora and Medusa as well. And then extinction protocols again, smacked her again, threw her into the grunts between and between hitting the grunts and then the grunts exploding onto her. She ended up dying first activation, top of 2. So at that point, I mean, John played really well, played well with the rest of his guys. But if it's 20 threat and I'm able to go up 6 threat, top of turn 2, like I'm not going to lose at that point. You know what I mean? So he also had 3 damage on his Gamora just because she was on the table. You know what I mean? And ended up moving her down. Red Skull dazed her really quick. Killmonger murdered Shuri. Red Skull went and killed Wasp. So I think around turn 4, something like that, I left a backside Medusa alive with a point so that I wouldn't table him, and I was able to score out, and it was like 20-8. So yeah, it was he didn't do anything wrong. I mean, outside of he probably didn't realize how much damage I could put into She-Hulk. Like, my plan was to kill her turn 2. I didn't expect to get her first activation of turn 2, but it worked out in my favor. So that game went pretty quick. That's Master of the World and his buddies doing what they do. But like I said, John was an excellent opponent. It was a nice game after the tight game that we had there in round 1 for me. This game was a little more cruise control, so I finished up and got ready for round 3.
Man, oh man, that sounds like the ultimate Ultron activation.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it was
exactly what he wants to do.
fantastic. Yeah, it was great. And I think like my next activation, I broke another piece of terrain, so the grunts came out again, and they were just it was silly.
Oh wow! All right, hey, Brandon, why don't you talk about your round 2?
Yeah, I think the most important thing about round 2 is that's when the food came out. So
That's true.
my opponent Jeff and I just decided to delay the start of our game to go get some brisket and pizza and wings and mac and cheese, and it was just I think that was a very important part of the day. But yeah, once we got back to it, he's playing Guardians. Which is another kind of tough matchup for me. They're always wider than me, so he can have people in places that I just can't put bodies on. We're playing 17 threat, though, which is my sweet spot. So I've got my same Fearsome 4, Thanos with Mind Power, and Corvus, Proxima, Nebula. He is playing Rocket and Groot, Star-Lord, Yondu, and Nova. I've read Nova's card, and I've did a lot of picking my jaw up off the floor. I know how good Nova is, but I never actually played against him, so I was very excited to see how he worked on the board. My primary goal was to pick a flank where Nova was not at, and stay away from him for as long as I could, and just punish the lower threat models on his team. Which I was able to actually do on turn 1. I think I baited out 2 bodyguards on Groot from Rocket and gotten Groot down to like 1 hit point. Got a lot of power on Corvus. And turn 2, I have priority typically, doing the husband and wife trick. They went ham. I got to Daze Rocket, it was Daze Groot, Daze Rocket, Daze Star-Lord. Just with that activation, it was just over the top ham. Put him on his back foot, which is what I always wanted to do. I was actually able to get Rocket and Groot out of the game really quickly. I think Rocket got to shoot twice, and Groot got to bodyguard like 2 or 3 times, and that was all they did the whole game. I flipped Star-Lord pretty easily, but you can't really hold down Nova. We were playing on Alien Ship and the new Guardians Save Empress, which is a pay-to-flip, so while I'm over here dealing with Star-Lord, Rocket, and Groot, Yondu and Nova have paid to flip the flank, and they're coming at me now. So since I'm bunched up, trying to chase down the rest of his team, Nova's able to come over and beam everyone on my team. I did sacrifice away a beam from Thanos onto Nebula, and that's always good. try and keep the big guy in play. But it was just so hard to contain Nova. He kept darting around the board. Like I could slow him with Thanos, but he would just make one move and shake it, do the big crazy beam. I think I ate 3 beams that game, and we were super tight the whole game. Tie game. He's maybe up 1. I'll knock somebody out and tie it again. It was super tight. And into the game, I've got a dazed Yondu and Nova up against me, and Thanos at 4 hit points. I'm like, I'm in a pretty good spot. I'll win like 17-15 at the end of this round if he doesn't roll perfectly with Nova. And he did. He was able to beam and hit Thanos. It was like a 10 dice beam. I just needed to make one more defense dice roll, and Thanos would have lived at 1 hit point, but he perfectly took Dazed Thanos. I drop an extract. He finishes off Proxima, who had an extract, and he jumps ahead, and he wins this game 19-16. It was a wonderful game. He's a great opponent. It seemed really thematic with Nova darting around the board. I was really pleased with the game, and we had a great time.
Man, Nova's just nuts. Nova's insane.
Yeah, and I love how thematic he is. He's a Nova. He's a supernova shooting around the board, and you just got to try and stay out of the way and don't stand in a straight line.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm sorry to hear that you lost your round 2, but that's how it goes sometimes, especially against Nova.
I want to note that Fred was not sorry that I lost round 1. So
no, I'm always happy to see Red Skull 3 get taken down a notch.
You're a bad person.
All right, Brad, why don't you discuss your round 2?
My round 2, I played this guy named Jared. Great guy. I hope to see him at future events. He's a little far away from us, so it'll only be like when we're going west and he's going east. But he's telling us that he has a podcast. It's called Modified Fate. I'm going to check it out this week. I'm excited to hear what they have to say. But he is playing Midnight Suns, and he got priority. So he chose to my extracts. So I pull his Mayor Fisk, and he pulls my Inhumans Deploy Advanced Weaponry. And so I choose 18 because that's the whole point of my extracts being 18. And I play the exact same list: Apocalypse, Colossus, Wolverine, Psylocke, with the same Horseman abilities as last round. And he plays Blade, Man-Thing, Werewolf by Night, and I thought it was Mighty Thor, but on round 2, when he activates her, it turns out to be him. It's Thor 2. I thought it was weird that he was playing Mighty Thor. Thor 2 made a lot more sense. But when he activated Thor, he bumps. He had taken a point and bumped backwards, and then he bumped back up and was a millimeter out of attacking either Psylocke or Apocalypse, and didn't have... He had 1 power, so he couldn't like throw himself or anything. So he had to move again, and then he attacks Apocalypse, trying to do some damage and push him away. He ends up, I think, doing 1 and I heal 1, and not getting the push trigger, and just completely whiffing this activation. So I punish him by dazing Blade with Apocalypse, and then this round, Wolverine also dazes Man-Thing. Those might have happened in the other order. For the rest of the game, Thor 2 lets him down time after time, and my Wolverine does not let me down even once. So Wolverine ends up eventually taking Man-Thing out. Apocalypse ends up taking Blade out eventually. Like I said, Thor doesn't do anything. I never attack Werewolf by Night the entire game. He has an extract, and he keeps putting him on the Mayor Fisk, and I have no way to get him off the Mayor Fisk or get the extract from him. So I either have to outnumber Werewolf by Night or just tie him on that one. but the Mare Fist being worth 2, it's worth just getting one or the other. So it's like not that big of a deal. And I just incrementally outscore him as I remove 2 of his models. And with Thor not doing anything, like it's just I get to keep all my models. Apocalypse gets dazed like at the very end of the game, but at that point I can score. I need 3 points to win, 4 points to win, but I'm gonna get one Mare Fisk and I can get 2 extracts no problem. After Wolverine once again comes in, saves the day, and finishes dazing Thor 2 for the win. So
Man.
yeah.
So Thor 2 really just did not have a good
Yeah.
game this game.
Yeah, and that's all it was. If Thor does anything this game is at least like a razor's edge one way or the other. And like he could have easily pulled this game out. But Thor just let him down time and time and time again. There was a point where he did a builder and a spender and did no damage. And there was another activation where he did like 3 damage total.
Man.
He did do some cool stuff. So he kept attacking Psylocke because she was the easy target with Thor. Easier target. And as he did this, he was doing splash damage from the trigger to Apocalypse, which he doesn't ignore. And then Mare Fisk did 3 damage to Apocalypse over the game that he can't ignore. So by the time he was attacking Apocalypse to daze him, Apocalypse had 2 health left. So he dazed him pretty easily by plinking him down throughout the game. But
yeah,
he just couldn't get Psylocke. And then when he finally had like 5 out of 6 damage on her, I spent 5 power on Apocalypse and patched her up. And he had to start over again. So
what a kick in the face.
yeah. And that was mostly Blade that did that 5 damage with Mystic attacks.
Right.
So once again, Jared, great opponent. I hope to see him in the future. Super nice guy.
All right. So that was our round 2. Let's move right into round 3. My round 3 opponent was a fantastic player from the Recess Games group named Gilbert. I've played against Gilbert before, and the last time we played, he absolutely stomped me.
Also, Gilbert Fred, if you remember, is the one that won the fall event, the fall Brew Brawl.
Yeah. Gilbert won the Brew Brawl in the fall. So he was playing Guardians of the Galaxy to my Web Warriors. He brought Peter Quill. He brought Beta Ray Bill, the Raccoon, Groot, and Yondu. He had Yondu in his list. So this was a 16-point game on scientific samples and deadline to destruction. I brought Miles Morales, Spectacular, Ghost Spider, Black Cat, and Rhino. That was my 16 threat. First round is normal. Nothing. I don't think anything happened. Second round, I go in hard on Yondu. Yondu is on his back point. Rhino goes in hard on Yondu and dazes him. This was big. So I force him to drop his extract, and I score this back secure at the end of round 2 because I take out his Yondu. The rest of my party just falls back. In fact, I think all of my people, except for Spectacular Spider-Man, fell back onto my back point, having stolen most of the scientific samples. Scientific samples is one of the new ones, and it's the one that I'm playing, and it is very good for Web Warriors. It is the one where you can score an extra victory point if you have all of your models who are holding a sample within range 2 of a secure objective. And that's something that I can do with the mobility of Web Warriors pretty easily. and it is something that helps me quite a bit, and it will matter at the end of this game. Round 3, Yondu is able to move up, and he does his spender towards a big clump of my people, and Yondu whiffs hard. This is really clutch. Like, if he had gotten his triggers and made multiple attacks back there, he would have just wrecked my team, and he doesn't. That was a big point of in my favor in this game. Rhino is able to hold on in the back of the point. I believe that I daze Beta Ray Bill using just I don't even remember how I did it, but I got really lucky with Spectacular Spider-Man, I think. And things are going okay for me. But while I say that, I am definitely being attrition down. Rocket Raccoon is zapping my people. Groot is hurting me, and Peter Quill is doing a lot of work with his range energy attacks. The end of this game, I pulled ahead on one of the turns. I score way more victory points than he does. I think I'm up by 4, but he is attritioning me down pretty heavily. On round 5, I know that I'm losing if I stand and fight. He is going to kill me. So I decide I'm just going to steal what I can and run. Black Cat steals a scientific sample and runs to the far left, just completely out of the game. Spectacular grabs a scientific sample and runs to the top. Rhino is already KO'd by this point, and I think so is Ghost Spider. And Miles, I just run away with as well. He is able to chase down everyone except for Black Cat. And Black Cat is holding a scientific sample on a secure objective, and she is the only model I have who is holding a scientific objective. So she scores me 3 victory points, and that wins me the game. I really like scientific samples. It's really solid. It's a fun scenario crisis, and I win this game 18-16. Had Yondu gotten off his big attack, this would have been a completely different game. I would have been probably completely annihilated. But again, things are going well for me this tournament, and I have won my round 3. That puts me at 3-0 at this point. All right, Borka, why don't you discuss your round 3?
My round 3 was rough. I had to play against the number 3 rated Black Order player in the galaxy. It was it was a game. In all seriousness, it was against Brandon, and he and I have played several times now over the past year. I told him beforehand. I said he was due because I think I got him 3 or 4 times previously. But it was a game that, I'm playing Master of the World. He's playing Black Order. We ended up on 17 Threat. It was Deadly Meteors, Legacy Virus. The earlier point I made earlier about a good opponent will take advantage of, things not going your way with dice or whatever. That happened perfectly. Round 1, he was able to kind of pull. I grabbed an objective with Zemo. He was able to pull him in a little and beat him up a little, and I think only left him on 1 or 2 health. I had priority, and I knew I had to get Zemo out of there because he was standing next to Corvus and Thanos, and it was a mess. And Zemo's pretty fast, but I also knew I needed to try and get rid of Proxima. So I charged into her with Master Swordsman with 5 dice attack, got more energy. I think I'm a Baron after all, and followed up with my spender, and I ended up leaving her on 1 or 2, which is, in my mind, knowing how attrition games work, I was kind of like, and that's probably the game, because I knew leaving her alive, even though I got Zemo on the other side of the board, her being alive, I knew he was going to be able to, mothership in her boyfriend. They were going to tag team and murder everybody and, start the chain reaction. So she's loaded up on power. And surely, he goes and as a good player, instead of like trying to move Thanos or do this or do that, activated her. She smacked some people around, pulled Glaive over. Glaive got to activate. Glaive murdered a bunch of people, and it was like, all right, there we go. The only thing that did surprise me after that was Amazing Spider-Man. Um, Amazing Spider-Man, pretty much by himself, kept me in the game, even though the final score is like 15-9. He was jumping everywhere, picking up extracts, flipping points. He came close a couple times to taking out Nebula and doing some other things, but he made it a ball game. I'm pretty sure he's the only character I had left too. And last thing I'll say. I ended up actually killing him myself because he had one hit point left, and I jumped and tried to flip the middle objective and got a skull. It killed him, and that ended the game 15-9. And so even though I couldn't win the game, I was like, well, I denied you a couple victory points. But my opponent he was not nice. He was very mean to me. He saw me act like a petulant child throughout the entire game. But overall, it was a ton of fun, and I'll let Brandon give his side of the story.
Yeah, Brandon, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, Black Order, known for their defense, really came out of the woodwork. He was throwing some, average attacks at me, like he wasn't spiking really hard, but I was spiking my defensive rolls really high on Nebula and Proxima, and that really kept me in the game because he left Proxima on one hit point, and that enabled me to position in the center of the board, right in the middle of his whole team. And it really turned south there. And then even Nebula, she was making some bonkers defensive rolls. She's only got like one built-in reroll, but I was like blocking 2 or 3 every single time that she was attacked. So I got really lucky dice-wise on the defensive end. But yeah, his Amazing Spider-Man, he was just zooting all over the board, where he's got the full rerolls. I just could not nail him down. I'd already used, I think, my execute on one of his bigger threat models. I think it might have been Master of the World. So yeah, I usually try to use the execute card on the target that's going to net me. Like I'm going to knock your leadership off the board, or I'm going to take out like one of your hardest things to kill. Just take away your defense dice altogether. So I think I had used that on Master of the World to get him off the table. Between Master of the World and Ultron, they can outrange me. They don't want to be in range 2 or 3 with me, so I was like, I've got to get them taken care of. But I think there was a one point in the game where Spider-Man had one of the legacy virus, and the other 2 were laying on the table, and he was contemplating making the web swing and the moves to pick them both up. It would have scored him the 6 and got him to like 14-15 and knocked out Spider-Man, which would have been crazy awesome, but he was just short, I think, like maybe 1 or 2 power. So it's always cool whenever the legacy virus is collected by one person. You so rarely see that come into play, but it's always so cool when it happens.
Yeah.
But no,
Well, awesome.
Josh's a great opponent. We there were some sour rolls, either me spiking defense or him whiffing on a few key attacks, and it was still a good game. I couldn't pin Spider-Man down, and I would recommend to anyone that can play Amazing Spider-Man, play Amazing Spider-Man.
More on that later on at the end of the tournament. All right. Well, that sounds like a great game. Brad, do you want to talk about your round 3?
I do. So I got to play against Dean. I met Dean playing Guild Ball years past, and we see each other at events a couple times a year. And it seems like usually one of those events a year we end up playing each other. Super nice guy. I love playing him. He wins priority and chooses my extracts for me to play. So I pull out his Superpowered Scoundrels, which I'm not liking. And he pulls my Montesi, which is 18 points. So guess what? I picked to play at 18 points. He's playing Avengers. Steve Rogers won. And I play the exact same list. He plays Sam, Steve Rogers 1, Hulk, and this is where there's a Black Widow, 2-point Black Widow, and that might be the whole list. 7, 13, 15. No, there's got to be a 3-pointer. It's Iron Man because he has Helios laser, which is a big problem. So I end up a point ahead the first turn, and most of this game is me running away from Hulk and attacking his other models. He had never played against Apocalypse before, and so I had to explain like what the leadership did and stuff, which is no problem. But he didn't know that Psylocke and Apocalypse could just make mystic attacks. And the two closest models to his two Captain Americas were those two. So I just kept making mystic attacks into Sam and Captain America, and then Psylocke was far enough away that he would have had to move off of points to attack her because of stealth. So it was kind of best case scenario. And then Wolverine and Colossus got to fight Iron Man and Black Widow, which I like that fight. So Wolverine dazes Tony, and then towards the end of the game, Hulk finally catches up and does enough damage to daze Apocalypse, which then lets Wolverine kill Iron Man before he ever got to play Helios laser, which was huge. And then so once this is another game like the last game where Apocalypse gets dazed at the end, but it took so long to do it that it's fine. And then he ends up double moving Black Widow over to a point. She's got 2 damage on her, so she's got 2 health left, and she's pretty far away from everyone. But Colossus can, in one move, get to her point, make an attack. I dealt 1 damage, and then I had to confirm with him. I'm like, she is still poisoned, right? From like the beginning of the game, Colossus poisoned her. And he's like, yes. And I'm like, and she has 4 health on this side. Yes. I was like, okay, I'm going to spend 2 tokens. I'm going to do an auto 1 damage to her, dazing her. I get her secure point, and that was the point I needed to win. So once again, just squeezing out that victory just in enough time before things start going bad for me.
I mean, that ability to just auto do 1 damage if they've got the condition you're trying to put on them is devastating. That's a really effective ability.
Yeah, it is restricted to 3 specific conditions, but there's lots of ways to put out those conditions. So
yeah. All right, Brad. Well, that was all of our round 3. So if you're paying attention, that means that Brad and I are both undefeated going into round 4. There is one other person who is undefeated. Spoiler alert, that person loses their game because they played against Savage, and Savage is a fantastic opponent.
I want to mention also, I'm just cutting in again, Fred, that this player has been playing for like 2 weeks and was playing X-Force and was mostly playing a roster based on the movie Deadpool 2. So the fact that he is undefeated at this point, given all that, is amazing. It's
a sign of how good of a player he will be in the future.
Yeah. I'm scared to run into him in the future for sure.
So Brad and I are against each other on the final table. So before we get to that, let's discuss the round for Borka. Borka, how was your round 4?
Round 4 was good. It was against a young man. It's like Dr. Drugos or something. Dragos. I don't know how the kids pronounce it. But he was playing Avengers, First Avenger, Captain America, who I'm pretty familiar with. It was Mayor Fisk, Scientific Samples. And I will say, scientific samples on Fisk is interesting because it seemed like it was hard to actually get everybody into scoring position sometimes. And almost like you didn't always want to because they were going to end up getting stunned in the following turn. So ours only came in like once or twice where one of us got the extra points for it. Also, at 17 threat, it seemed like they were laying on the ground a lot. We weren't able to pick them all up. Um, Final score ended up going 22-10. I don't know. Based on his questions, I don't think he was familiar with Dracula. And Dracula and Cabal is quite tough. I ended up taking Red Skull, Dracula, Hulk, and Bullseye. And he murdered Bullseye pretty quick with Archangel, who I hadn't seen play, but he's actually quite good under First Avenger because if he gets a hit, he can pay one to turn one of his dice to a wild, and then if he has a wild, he can make another one of his dice a hit. So he hit pretty hard and put out like poison and stuff like that. So it was pretty cool. He also had he can buff his defense to things being thrown at him. He came in, tried to come in the middle of the board. I was able to do some control things to keep Wolverine out of the fight until I was ready to jump into him. And sure as heck, I thought it was going to be another one of those close but no cigar games because I activated Red Skull, who he had put two conditions on. I used Cosmic Obliteration to drop the conditions and incinerate Wolverine. I made a 5 dice Mystic into his 1 defense die, followed up by a 7 dice Spender into his 1 defense die, and I left him on 1 health. And I thought, this is bad because he was on his backside. So between First Avenger adding 5 dice to his attacks, being loaded up on power, he went blender mode. And I luckily Hulk had only had about 4 damage onto him up to that point. So Hulk absorbed most of it. A little bit got onto Red Skull, but I survived that turn. And he moved up with his First Avenger, and this was a pretty cool play on my part. The Mayor Fisk witnesses had kind of stayed in the same spot. We just moved them a little so we could ping each other with damage. But I had my Dracula on the left flank, and I had activated him, and it was just him and Black Widow. He killed Black Widow. His activation was done. He had the final activation, and he charged in with Steve, did a shield bounce into Hulk, put some damage on him, and then bounced it into Dracula. And he asked, "How far is his clap back?" And I told him, I said, it's the range of his weapons. So I said he's got 2 range 2s and a range 3. I said, I can pay for it at any range. And I also have Warpath. And I told him that, and he did it anyway, bounced it into him. Well, when he bounced into Dracula, he did a little damage. I Warpath towards him, and then did my Spender. And because the Spender is range 3, the Warpath moved him over, and I was close enough because he was going to contest the point with his Captain America that I hit him for 5 damage with the Spender. That then auto threw him off the point into a lamppost and killed him, ending his activation and giving me priority for the next turn. So,
Oh man.
yeah, it was pretty cool. I think it was the longest because Hulk was kind of far out, right at that 3 range, and then Dracula was a little past him, but he was close enough to short move in with that medium base and just grab onto Steve at range 3, and I spinnered into him, and Dracula was an absolute stud that game. I mean, he did a lot of damage to Wolverine, killed Chosen of Bass, killed Black Widow, and then ended up, dazing Captain America. And he was at full health pretty much the whole game because he kept healing, and he put conditions on him. I'd just walk over, clear him, heal. And for the most part, I waited to activate Dracula last. So he really got good action economy because anytime he tried going into him, he just hit him back. And but yeah, the game, like I said, I was pretty familiar with Steve Rogers. I knew who I wanted to deal with, and Mayor Fisk with the Hulk always feels pretty good because it feels like he can really kind of touch everybody throughout the game. And yeah, 22-10. So ended up 2-2 on the day. Had an absolute blast. All my opponents were, super cool to play against. Great sportsmen. All the games were really competitive and good games. The only one that I did feel bad was that round two, because when poor She-Hulk got at the top. And his defense, he kept playing well, and he did a good job. But outside of that, it was four really good competitive games. I agree with Brandon. The food at the Brew Brawl is amazing. Had an absolute blast, and can't wait to get back next year.
All right. I'm glad you had fun. And there's a Brew Brawl in October. If or it's
No,
in September, I think.
nope. It's
Oh,
in it's in August. They said that today. It's the third Saturday in August.
third Saturday in August. Oh, okay. All right,
Yep.
then that's when the next one is. Hey Brandon, how was your round 4?
So round 4, the opponent you had played in round 3, Gilbert, was knocked down into my bracket. So that's who I got in round 4. I got to play Guardians again. I'd already taken a loss from them earlier in the day in round 2, so I was not excited. We were doing 20 threat, legacy virus, and superpowered scoundrels. I'm already like on my back, I'm already tilted because I'd lost to Guardians, and now I've got to play a 5 secure map with, Black Order, who doesn't like to go wide. I'd much rather go tall. But the 20 threat worked out for me. I was able to play my core 17 Thanos, Corvus, Proxima, and Nebula. And then I throw in my 3-point sleeper agent that nobody seems to see coming, Supergiant, taking me up to 20 points. No, I got to be careful with her because she can drop extracts and stuff like that. But if you put her up against the right target, she is nigh unkillable. At his 20, he was running Star-Lord, Angela, Beta Ray Bill, Yondu, and Gamora is who he was running. So I knew I needed to put Supergiant up against Gamora because she's only physical attacks, or in front of Angela because she's like 2/3 of her attacks are physical. So Supergiant, can eat that and regenerate it. I need to stay the heck away from Yondu. I need to stay away from Bill. My primary goal was to, of course, secure a flank because I'm taller than he is and he's wider. There's no way I can keep up with all these objectives, and I need to pick one model to get off the board to kind of put him on that back foot. And I picked the hardest model. I went with Beta Ray Bill, who can reduce damage to 0, and he's got good saves. And he just happened to overextend Bill and go for that middle objective. And Thanos was able to zoot up and stone him in, pull him into my guys, and I was able to daze him pretty early. And I have Prio, of course. I'm outnumbered, and with the husband and wife trick, I've got Prio in round 2. I get to execute off, and I get Bill off the table pretty early. So now it's 16 to 20-point game. I've got Supergiant matched up against Gamora on my strong flank, so I'm feeling pretty confident. And there was a few attacks that he had with Yondu from the back point because Yondu's got such great range and he's got all energy attacks. He's like the bane. He's like the bane of my existence as far as like the Black Order is concerned. But I was able to stay away from him, and his dice were kind of cold with Yondu. He didn't do a lot of bouncing, the dart around, and he wasn't able to get any good shots into Supergiant. So the game kind of ran away after Bill went down. I just started picking apart some of the smaller point models. Got Star-Lord off the table with Nebula, who just eats people alive if they're got an objective. She got to take a bit of damage and build up to 6 power, so she could do 2 of those shock sword assaults, re-rolling everything, and then Thanos throws some extra dice on one of those. It's just, she's over the top. And that game really fell apart for him around turn 4 or 5. But he was a great opponent. He was, he just had some bad dice on some of his energy attacks, and I was able to pull the win out on that and end the day at 3-1.
All right. All right. A hell of a game. Now let us discuss the final table, and that is Brad versus me. Brad, why don't you discuss this?
Well, I lose priority, and Fred chooses to do my extracts. There wasn't really a great choice for him here, but that was better. And he pulled out the best extract he could have for himself, which is Inhumans Deploy Advanced Weaponry. And I pull out
Mm-hmm.
Cosmic Invasion, which I also did not want to see. And of course, Fred and his Web Warriors are the only time I don't want to play 18 points. I want to play 17 or 19. My choices were 16 or 18. So I chose 18. And I played a different list because that's why I want different point levels for Fred. I want to play Apocalypse, Magic, Psylocke, Mr. Sinister. Or at 19, add Toad to that. So I could play a point down and play that list, but instead I keep Magic as Wolverine, and then I play Psylocke and Sinister. Sinister is Pestilence, Psylocke is Famine, War for Wolverine. Fred, you played Miles, Black Cat, Moon Knight, Namor,
And Rhino.
Rhino. Yeah, and Rhino.
Yep.
Psylocke and Apocalypse end up on one side D, and then a bunch of people end up on the other side D, and my D is completely alone. Fred's got, I think you had 3 models on your home D at the end of the round because of just playing KG.
Yep. I was being extra cagey this game. I safe grabbed one of the extracts with Namor and moved him back onto my home
Yeah.
model, onto my home side. Yeah, I did. I had 3 models on there at the end of round 1.
And then on the D that had both of us, I had a Wolverine and a Sinister, and he had Moon Knight wasn't on the point, and then Black Cat was. So I ended up winning that point. And then there's a lot of crazy stuff in this game. So I tried to starve Moon Knight of power so that he couldn't use his Mystic Spender on Wolverine. So I was mostly attacking Black Cat, which doesn't go well. So all I can do, like, to try to take out Black Cat is charge Wolverine so I can double count wilds. Because I can't switch dice with War or anything like that. Sinister has some pretty good turns. Rhino has a great turn where he ends up Rhinoberine Wolverine off of the point, taking his extract, and then dazing Sinister. But that loads Sinister full of power, so the next turn, I beam Rhino and Black Cat, and then he aggressives Rhino so that I can't do that again, except Sinister has a pay to move a model, so I just move him back to where I can beam them again. This leaves them at 1 health each, but Sinister uses his superpower to put Root on Black Cat because she doesn't have anything, and Rhino already has Root on him. So I use the Pestilence superpower to do 1 damage to each of them, dazing Rhino and killing Black Cat.
Yeah. This really hurt me. This was the thing that really killed me this game.
At my Apocalypse and Namor end up on my home D, and they're battling it out. And there was 2 or 3 charges that Namor does that don't do damage to Apocalypse. Not that he heals it; it doesn't do damage. So no stagger. One of
Yeah,
those
that
was
that also really hurt.
one of those was the first charge to get there. An attack that would have easily dazed Apocalypse. It was well more than he needed, which I
Yeah,
recalibration.
I rolled like 3 crits initially, and then rolled 3 more hits out of those,
Yeah,
and did a reroll and got a hit. I got 10 hits, and so he recalibrates it,
I
and
recalibrate it, and it. I think you got one, and I got two. And so
yeah,
no
it was
damage,
nuts.
no stagger, nothing. Every round, I didn't mention this the other 2 rounds, but in round 2, Wolverine recalibration matrix to live on 1 health on his flip side. No, 2 health on his flip side, giving him 3 extra dice on his attacks for the round. And then there was a Hulk attack into Apocalypse that are recalibration matrix in round 3 that saved Apocalypse and got me like 2 extra victory points that turn that ended up snowballing and winning me the game. So every game, one of my recalibration matrices just saves me at some point in the
Yeah,
game. At the very end
that
of the
means you're using it correctly.
yeah,
That means you're doing it right.
but sometimes you do the recalibration matrix and it just fails, and you daze
Yeah,
anyway, or whatever bad stuff happens anyway. At the very end of the game, like I'm looking at the thing and I'm like, okay, I think if I just don't do anything, Rhino can't get to me and I win. And Fred has other plans. So he he picks up an extract with Rhino, double moves and slides over to secure, which if he gets, will tie the game and we go into another round. But Rhino's already flipped, and Psylocke has been left alone this entire game. So I just double move her to the same point as Rhino and score that point over him because she's healthy and still win the game. So,
yeah,
um,
yeah. So the game ends. Brad 18, me 17.
yeah, really good game, really close game.
It was very close.
And then, so I get first, and Fred, who has a very strong strength of schedule and scored 1,000,000 victory points, gets second.
That's right, everybody.
Go
I got
us.
second place. I'm really happy. Like this is a coup for me. This was as good as I've ever done in a tournament, I think.
This is
So
I've been,
I'm really happy.
this
I've been
is
telling you for 2 weeks how great you were going to do, and you kept saying, nope, nope, not going to happen.
this
Nope.
is also the best Fred has played against Apocalypse with his Web Warriors, and he played a weird list, which I think helped. And Fred could have easily won this game and won this whole tournament, no problem.
Yeah, yeah. I'm real happy with how things played out. Brandon, earlier on in this discussion, you had mentioned that if you can play Amazing Spider-Man, you should play Amazing Spider-Man. I have made the decision to cut Wong out of my list because he's never I never bring him. I never feel like he's worth bringing, and I'm going to replace him with Amazing Spider-Man. And
I think that's
that
an amazing choice.
yeah, that's something that we had this discussion on the way back. We were all discussing how I should fit in Amazing Spider-Man because I need to put him in my roster, and yeah, that's where we landed. Also, Rhino made it to every game that I played today, and he is the secret sauce that makes my list work. Rhino is amazing. Yeah, it was Borka gave me the idea to put Rhino in the list, and he is right. Borka was correct. Rhino fits amazingly. And that was our discussion on the tournament at Akron Brew Brawl. I highly recommend that everyone attends this event. This event is a ton of fun. I know we've said it a couple times now. Y'all should go whenever you can. All right. That's enough for the games that we played recently. Why don't we go to trivia? Hey, Brad, do you have a trivia game for us today?
I do. We got a special little trivia today, and this is how the trivia game works, especially for Borka, who never listens to this segment, and Brandon, who I don't even know listens to the podcast. I asked Fred 3 questions about MCP characters, and the questions are not about MCP. They're about the comics, and Fred has read very few comics, so he has to guess who we're talking about. If he gets it right with the first clue, he gets 3 points. If he gets it right with the second clue, he gets 2 points. Then he can ask Borka and Brandon for help to get 1 point. And I have a feeling that that may
It's
not
not
be
gonna get
as
any help.
that's not going to be as helpful as normally Steven or Brandon might be, but we'll see.
Until you just said this, I didn't realize this game was based on comic books. So that's interesting.
Yes,
I
it
thought they were
is.
all movies.
No, is just the comic books.
Huh.
Occasionally a movie does get mentioned in here, but not today. So, are we ready to go, fellas?
Yeah, as ready as I'm gonna be.
Okay. Fred, your first clue. This character once advocated for the destruction of other universes to keep them from colliding with the main Marvel universe. When the others disagreed with this course of action, this character frees Corvus, Proxima, and Thanos and recruits them, along with some others, to destroy those universes anyway.
Okay. Okay. Can you repeat the middle thing you said? It kind of broke up a little bit.
Oh,
for me.
sorry. When he's advocating for the destruction of other universes. When the other people he's talking to disagree, he goes rogue and he frees Corvus, Proxima, and Thanos and a bunch of other people to destroy those universes that we're going to collide.
Okay, so this is becoming a theme with these, where the first one is always someone who decides to and succeeds in destroying a universe.
Okay, just because Beast did it and this person did it doesn't mean everyone does it.
Yeah, sure. I have no clue, and it's happened multiple times that this has been the hint, and I don't know. So I'm gonna just guess Professor Xavier.
That is incorrect. This character
Okay.
is often considered the first anti-hero in comics. This character was the villain in his first appearance fighting against the US, but many comics readers saw this character as noble and that his cause was just. This character continues to tread the line of hero and villain to this day, sometimes attacking the heroes and sometimes joining with them. He has been a member of the Cabal and Illuminati, and he has even been an Avenger, a Defender, and joined other teams. Soon he will be a member of the new Thunderbolts team.
Is this Ghost Rider?
This is not Ghost Rider.
Okay. Dang it.
All right. Brandon or Borka, do you guys have anything to help Fred out here?
Like, do we just make a guess for him, or
You can do
Yeah.
that. That's usually how it works.
okay? He's gonna be a Thunderbolt, like in the
Yes.
movie.
In the comics.
Ah, shit. I'm gonna say Magneto.
That is an interesting pick. That is incorrect.
Yeah.
It is a mutant though. It is Namor.
No.
You didn't even let me guess.
Oh, sorry, the third round. There's one guess, so you guys can discuss it and come up with one guess. We'll do that next time.
Okay.
Sorry.
My bad. You were gonna say Namor, weren't you?
Oh, of course.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know.
It's
My bad.
It's all that Black Order knowledge. You knew that Corvus, Proxima, Thanos, and Namor worked together to destroy universes.
Yeah, the best pals.
Yep. All right. So far, 0 points, Fred. You're doing great.
Yep.
This character was once recruited by the leader to ruin Bruce Banner and Betty Ross's wedding. This character is later recruited by Kingpin, who portrays this character, keeping what he wants away from this character until this character kidnaps one of the scientist's sons to get him to do what Kingpin promised. This character also worked for Dr. Octopus. This character had recently lost his wife before this and has had a change of heart. So when Doc Ock blows up his own base, this character sacrifices his life to save Silver Sable.
Is this Sandman?
That is a great guess, Fred, and is incorrect.
Dang it.
Yeah,
Because I
yeah.
knew he worked. Yeah, okay.
That was such a good guess. Your hint. This character was once just a normal Joe in the Mafia before he was bonded to a special polymer, giving him durability and super strength. He has been upgraded on several occasions to become stronger and more durable.
Is this a special polymer to give him super strength?
Mm-hmm.
Is this Omega Red?
No.
Okay.
All right, Borka and Brandon, it's your turn.
What are you thinking, Brandon?
Is this person green?
I do not answer follow-up questions.
Oh, God.
I think the person is green.
You think it's green?
Yeah, so I'll let you run away with that.
Oh, this isn't fair. I feel like I'm on the spot. Green. It's not the Lantern guy, is it, right? That's the wrong universe. The only one I can think of would be that's green is it? Would you say Vulture, Brandon? Is that who you're thinking?
I was thinking maybe it's like Hulk or something.
Hulk? I thought he tried to ruin Bruce Banner's wedding. I guess that makes sense. Is it what's that guy's name?
That does make sense.
Johnny Fixit or
Joe Fixit, who is not in the game?
yeah. Oh, do they have to be in the game?
Yeah, the answer is a character who is in the game.
Damn, there's a lot of rules to this. This is why I don't listen to this section. Too complicated. You don't think it's Hulk? You got to guess, Brandon? Because I'm gonna blur something out.
I'm gonna say Rhino.
Ooh.
Rhino is correct.
Yeah.
For 1 point.
Hey, nice.
I was kind of thinking him too when he was talking about the polymer thing.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Okay.
his suit is a special polymer that makes him durable and strong. They also eventually expose him to gamma radiation to make him stronger. I don't know.
Oh.
It's weird. He is, for a long period of time, he is mostly a Hulk villain, which is very weird. Okay.
What's he do? Just show up and get beaten?
Yeah.
Rhino versus Hulk.
Pretty much. Yeah. Okay, Fred, your third trivia. A mercenary for hire, this character becomes a costume superhero after a tragic life event. With the aid of his friend Frenchie, this character fights crime and takes care of problems that keep arising from his past, like his serial killer brother and the crazy serial killer former mercenary commander. While he's fighting crime, he also has to keep up his relationship with his girlfriend, who doesn't like who he is sometimes, and keep down a steady job of driving a cab in New York City.
Oh crap! I was about to guess that it's Daredevil with Frenchie, but he's not a cab driver. So who?
God,
who did,
I know this one.
is
Well,
this the
you have to
Punisher?
wait.
Yeah.
What was that, Fred?
Is this the Punisher?
That is incorrect. Your hint.
Okay.
This character originally had superpowers from being bitten by a werewolf, but those powers wore off pretty quickly, and they went a long time without powers. Only to get some god-fueled powers eventually, kind of. He still seems like a pretty normal human power level.
Okay, so he was bitten by a werewolf, and it gave him powers.
Temporarily, yeah.
I don't have any idea. I don't have any clue. It's not Werewolf by Night, is it?
No, that is who bit this person. Was Werewolf by
Okay.
Night.
Okay.
Okay, Borka and Brandon, it's your go. Let's salvage this from Fred's
I'm about 90% I know who this is.
You take it then.
All right. It is Moon Knight.
That is correct. It is Moon Knight.
Oh,
yeah.
that actually makes sense.
The reason his
Okay.
girlfriend doesn't like who he is sometimes he's a different person than her boyfriend.
Because he has multiple personalities.
Yep.
Because he's got to find out what that brain do.
Yeah, he does have to find out what that brain do, as Fred says. And Frenchie flies the helicopter. That
Is this the same Frenchie that is friends with Daredevil?
who is Frenchie that is friends with Daredevil?
Is that not Frenchie? Isn't
You're
one of his
thinking of
friends
Froggy Nelson.
Froggy? That's who it is.
Yeah, Franklin Froggy Nelson is who you're thinking
Yep.
of. I was so confused when you're like, I thought it was Daredevil. I'm like, what in there was Daredevil? Okay, so Fred, for 3 points, your bonus question. What do these characters have in common?
Well, they are all in my roster. I don't think that that's what it is though. Like, because I have all three of these in my roster for the tournament.
Go on.
They are all good additions to Web Warriors. Okay, hold on. Let me think this through. I played all three of them in my game against you.
Exactly, Fred.
Is that what it is?
Perfect. So that's a total of 5 points, which is enough to lose. Okay, move on.
Yeah, I lose. All right. Thank you, Brad.
I gotta say, we helped you more than I thought we would.
You
Yeah,
you
I know
guys
very little about this.
literally scored the only points Fred won this game. Only real points. The bonus points don't matter.
Well,
Yeah,
even with our
he
help, we
always
can't
chooses-
beat you.
He always chooses just under the correct amount for me to win.
That's not
for
true.
the number of bonus points.
If you need 1 point to win, I'll give you the point for the bonus.
Yeah. How often does that happen? Very infrequently.
Yeah.
All right, so today we are talking about Corvus Glaive, otherwise known as Corvus Glaive. His defense stats are 3 physical, 3 energy, and 3 mystic. He has 6 stamina on both sides of his card. He has a threat value of 4, a size of 2, and a movement speed of medium. Hey, Brad, why don't you talk about his attack suite?
His first attack is a strike. It's physical, range 2, 5 dice, cost 0. Gain power for the damage dealt. Wild Pierce. His second attack is energy, Atom Splitter, range 4, 4 dice, also cost 0. Gain 1 power. His third attack is physical, Death Blow, range 3, 7 dice, it costs 4. After the attack is resolved, this character may advance medium. And on a wild block, he gets a flurry. After the attack is resolved, he can make a strike attack.
Okay, so what I normally do with the other folks is I have them, I have everybody read. Do you have this up, Borka? Do you have this card up? Okay.
Yeah.
Can you read these first 2 superpowers?
Sure. First ability is Glaive's Edge. You pay 3 power to activate it. During the next strike or death blow attack this turn, this character adds blanks in its attack roll to its total successes. Yuck. Next ability is Husband of Proxima Midnight. Proxima Midnight is also a character in this game. Pay 1 at the end of this character's activation. If it is within 3 of an allied Proxima Midnight, this character may use this superpower. If the allied Proxima Midnight does not have an activated token, she may activate before your turn ends. Also, gross.
Yeah, disgusting. Brandon, can you read the rest of the card?
Yeah, Corvus Glaive wields the Glaive of Immortality. This is would that be like a constant superpower? He doesn't need to activate
Innate.
it. Whenever he would suffer an innate superpower, that's it. Whenever he would suffer damage from an enemy effect, reduce that amount suffered by 1 to a minimum of 1. He also has innate superpower to be a gem bearer. He can bring the reality gem or the time gem.
All right. Yeah, so this is Corvus Glaive. Most of the people out there have probably played against him. He is a absolutely key piece in the Black Order playset. Hey, Brad.
Yeah.
What do you think about Corvus Glaive?
I used to play Corvus Blade a lot back when X-Men were bad, and I played him in Proxima with Storm, and it was great. So the old reality gem, making him one threat more and counting a skull as a crit was amazing because you could make very consistent attacks with him using Glaive's Edge just over and over again, doing massive amounts of damage. And that has been true throughout the history of the game until a couple weeks ago. They nerfed Reality Stone. Now you have to pay to count that that skull as a crit, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
You have to pay to do it now. He still seems pretty solid, but I think people are going to start taking him without the gem. The Glaive's Edge, that's such a good ability. And the Husband of Proxima Midnight, and she has the same thing. She can go first and then make him go. That is such a good ability. Those two things being on his card are still make him worth it, I think. He's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Borka, what are your thoughts here on Corvus Glaive?
Yeah, Glaive is one of the old school original baddies. Just like Brad was saying, he played him in his X-Men. I think early on in the game, when there still weren't a lot of models, he was really one of the hardest hitters, and that it was such a nice little eight threat package, him and his wife with Reality Stone, that you could just drop into a lot of different lists to give you a nice hard hitting pair, and then their ability to use husband and wife really helps with priority control, which is also a nice ability to him. And I think honestly, a lot of times his spender is just Glaive's Edge striking. Being able to count all your blanks, having Pierce on that, and then often he's with Thanos, so you can usually pump up his attack with Death's Decree. But yeah, I think Glaive is he's a great model. He's been in the game for a long time and stayed pretty much the same. I do agree that I mean, I don't think he needs Reality Stone. Reality Stone just kind of made him gross. He's I do think though that you want to play him in Black Order because having Mothership and things like that, having Thanos with him now to be able to you know cosmic portal him up and things like that, it helps Black Order save a threat that they can use in other places. And then I think that Thanos, where he's still great, but he feels more of like a buffer to his team now, not just a kill piece. So I think he's really good there because the fact he doesn't have a charge, that always is tough on a melee piece. So being in Black Order, I think that helps cancel a lot of that out. And then even though he's 3/3/3, reducing by 1, he was 6 health on both sides. I think he is a little tankier than he looks at first blush. But yeah, I think he's great.
All right. All right. So I saved him to last. Brandon, you have an enormous amount of experience playing Corvus Glaive. I think is there a game that you've played where you didn't bring him in Black Order?
I don't think so.
He makes your list every single time.
Yeah, there might have been a handful of times where I was, trying to tinker around and play some of the Black Order that I'd never put on the board. And then I realized, why I never put them on the board because, Corvus and Proxima are just dynamite together. And when he had the Reality Stone, I feel like that didn't make him the killer that he is. I feel like that made him the overkiller. He became a 5 threat that punched like a 7, and now you take that stone away from him, you take that skull crit away, he's still a 4 threat that punches like a 6. Like counting blanks, piercing on a wild, Thanos able to throw a couple extra dice or 4 extra dice onto him if he is injured. He just still just goes ham. The priority stealing ability with the husband and wife, being able to keep that priority because you want to hit first. I still think he's dynamite. Really, I think the big hit on the reality gem was the defensive hit. He's already picking models up without the reality gem, but before he could, take a hit with the damage reduction and counting a skull as a crit, like he was so tanky, on top of being so killy. So I don't think he's bad at, like, there's conversation out there, oh, this gets nerfed, he's unplayable now, and it's just not the case. I think, like, he did lose some defensive durability. He's still very durable, like Borka said, but you just got to be a little more mindful now where you put him on the board. And with Thanos, being able to place him, or with Mothership, and also there's some mobility built into Death's Blow. If you can build up some power on him and get him to like 7 power. I say 7 because you always want to use Glaive's Edge. It's just too good not to use. So, like, if I'm less than 7 power, I'm not going to use this spender. But as part of the Death Blow attack, you get to advance medium. And yeah, he doesn't have a charge, but he's got a range 3 attack that has a built-in advanced medium. So it's almost like a hit and run. And if you can get that flurry off, which you're already at 7 dice base, throw 2 to 4 extra dice on top of that with Thanos, and now you're at a 9 to 11 dice. It's pretty high probability that you're going to get the wild and the block. And then whenever he does, after that move, he makes a strike attack, and you want to count more blanks. That's the attack where you're not going to be able to do that because it's a superpower, not a reactive power. So you really, if you're doing the flurry, the death blow into flurry, you're dumping all your eggs into one basket, but you can really decimate a team with that. The big thing with him is once he starts using Glaive's Edge, if like Borka said, you just use strikes. You throw a couple extra dice on him with Thanos. He's going 7 dice, count blanks, pierce on a wild, and all the damage I do it's a builder. He gains all that power back. In round 4 against Gilbert, I kept, Corvus was just going ham on all his guys, and I would be like, counts blank attack, and he's like, how are you doing that so much? I'm like, these are all strikes, man. At every point of damage I do to you, I'm gaining power, and I'm able to just count my blanks, and he is still the monster that he was. The nerf to the Reality Stone was a defensive nerf, not an offensive nerf. So I really think he's one of the all-stars, an auto include if you're playing Black Order.
Yeah. This model is awesome. He has been in the game for a while, and there are people who play Black Order without Thanos and with this guy as the leader, and they do pretty well. Like, do you want to talk about his leadership, any?
Yeah.
I know that you've played his leadership quite a bit. So give me just a second. I'll pull that up. But do you want to talk about it first, real quick?
Yeah, if you leave Thanos off the table, which at 16 that's a choice. It's hard to squeeze the powerhouses into a 16-point list, so that's where you'll see Corvus as your leader typically. He gains the leadership ability whenever a allied Black Order dazes a character or KOs an enemy character. All other Black Order gain 1 power. It's called Right Hand Man.
Yeah, you got it. That was exactly it. So
yeah, it's good.
I just pulled it up.
Do you guys want to talk about it? How you feel about it before I chime in?
No. You go ahead.
So yeah, it is a good leadership. It's there's some power going out. It is reliant on you being killy, and that's what Black Order are. They're killy affiliation. You're down a card playing it, so you only have 4 cards if you're playing this card. I think it's fine, but just getting power off of dazing and killing your opponents instead of victory points it's a hard trade-off for me, because you're usually playing tall or playing to kill, and your opponent is usually much wider than you are. So it's if you're not getting those extra VPs, it can be a little tougher of a race to keep up on VPs.
Okay. So do you you would prefer Thanos' leadership just normally? You normally play with his?
Yeah, in addition to getting the VPs, being able to do the free mind gem, it's just I think that leadership compared to this one, I would choose that leadership. The extra power, Corvus Glaive's not starved for power. Once he hits somebody once, he's going to have power the rest of the game until he's dead. Um, a lot of the other Black Order are the same. Ebony Maw powers himself up pretty well. So this is a fine leadership. I'd say this is something that I play at lower points when Thanos is just an option at an 8 threat model. But otherwise, yeah, I think I'm going to be leaning into Thanos' leadership.
All
Yeah,
right.
I do think with the rework to Thanos and Black Order in general, I mean now Thanos at his best is in Black Order, and I because I've played the Corvus leadership in the past, and it was fine, like you said. But now I think where his Thanos' leadership scores you points on his front and his back. Um, I agree. It's like this is really just a situation if you can't squeeze Thanos in. But other than that, I think you try to play as much Thanos as you can.
Okay. There is one other tactics card that is associated with Corvus Glaive that we should talk about. That card being Execute.
Yep.
I think you used this a couple times during the tournament, Brandon. It is an unaffiliated reactive tactics card. When Corvus Glaive targets an enemy character with an attack that is within range 1 of an allied Proxima Midnight, or when Proxima Midnight targets an enemy character within range 1 of an allied Corvus Glaive, both characters may spend 2 power to play this card. The enemy character rolls no defense dice during this attack. That's just disgusting.
Oh
It's
yeah,
great.
it's devastating. One of the questions I always ask my opponent, because there are so many characters, I don't know all of the cards, but I'm always like, what defensive tech does that character have? And if they have some wild, oh, I count blanks as successes, or I re-roll everything like Amazing Spider-Man, like that's who I'm going to use this card. I just want to get
Yeah.
them off the table. This is the card.
Yeah, this is great, and it plays into the way that Corvus Glaive and Proxima Midnight play. It's doing what they do, and that is what you want to see in a tactics card.
Yeah, and you want to use this obviously on Corvus. You would like him to be at 5 power when you use it, so that you can count your blanks while going into their no defense dice. You just want to push through all the damage and just chew through them real quick.
Yeah. Brad, what do you think about this card?
I love this card. I think this is a very good reason to play these two models. In addition to everything they do all on their own, like they're great on their own. This is like the icing on the cake or the cherry on top. Like I love this card. I played it all the time when I was playing
Yep.
them.
Borka, what are your thoughts here? Oh,
Oh, sorry,
did we
I was muted. It's
Okay.
disgusting. It's a great card. I mean, it you know, just like I said, it does exactly what you want. It's like, hey, I want to kill. Why not execute them? So yeah, it's a great card.
Yeah. All right, we got to give Corvus Glaive a letter grade here. So, I mean, Corvus Glaive is absolutely a ball buster to play against. I've never played him myself, but I have played against him many times, and he has murdered people on my team in most of the games I've played against him. He is just such a threat on the battlefield. You can't ignore him, and he's so tough to remove. Like he reduces damage. He's tankier than you think. He's really good. Even with the reduction in the reality gem, I think he still has a great place in the game. He's someone who you have to factor in if you're up against Black Order. Uh, I'm gonna give him a solid A. Like he's an A model. uh, I think he's great, and yeah, that's where I'm at. Brad, what do you think about Corvus Glaive?
I've been recently mentioning that I'm not taking into account like whether you would splash a model anymore, especially for the upper tiers. I still think that Corvus Glaive is a model that if you want to splash, it's perfectly fine. He's pretty tough. He hits like a truck. And he is, I think, the first model you reach for after Thanos in affiliation too. So I'm giving him an A+. I think he's absolutely fantastic.
Right. Borka, what do you think here on Corvus?
Yeah, I'll give him kind of two grades. I think on his own, I think he's an A. You want to kill, and that's exactly what he does. His only drawback is he does lack a charge. So, there could be guys that do a little better, but I mean, you get him in position. Him being on medium base and being a medium, it's kind of easy to get him to where the fight's at. And once he gets there, just like Brandon mentioned too, he does have mobility on his death blow. So, yeah, I think he's an A. He's totally splashable. You can take him anywhere you want. And then in Black Order, I think he's an S tier model. I think him and Thanos are both excellent, and they play great in Black Order.
You're doing the thing that I don't allow. You're doing the giving them subjective grades.
Well, for the record, you could never stop me from doing anything if you wanted to. But I will say it is an A is the rating I would give him.
Okay.
That's my rating. But if you're playing Black Order, he's an S tier model. You know what I mean? He's absolutely amazing. But yeah, he's an A.
Okay, all right. And Brandon, what are your thoughts here on Corvus?
S, always S. He's on the table at 16 points as your leader. He's on the table at 17 through 20 points as your, tornado of death. There are cards that you can't play without him. The priority stealing with him and his wife. I mean, he's S tier. I mean, you give him a charge and you're just right back to, oh no, he's going to be in the nerf pool again. But the toolkit that he has is fantastic. Even like I don't know about splashing him. Like he's a solid. I would say he punches more like a 5 in as a splash, but in affiliation as a 4 threat, he punches like a 6. He's your opponent is terrified of him, which could disrupt their play style, and that's a huge thing. Just the psychological element of him being on the board and having 3 power. It's like, well, what are you going to do? You're going to go for that point, or are you going to die? And so I would say S tier 100%.
All right. So that was our take on Corvus Glaive. He's real good. He's real good, everyone. Brad, do you have any comic books that feature Corvus Glaive?
I do. I have 2 recommendations today. As we do Black Order, it gets harder and harder to give recommendations because they usually are a unit. So I tried to find some stuff where Corvus was kind of doing stuff on his own and only kind of succeeded on that. So the first story I'm going to say is New Mutants 23 through 24 by Jonathan Hickman and Kev Walker. Same Jonathan Hickman I recommend all the time because his comics are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
After Namor leaves the Illuminati over arguments about what to do about the incursions, these are universes running into each other and destroying both universes. Namor leaves the Illuminati and he breaks out Corvus Glaive, Proxima Midnight, and Thanos from stasis and forms a new cabal to destroy these universes. Corvus takes to this job wholeheartedly and he gleefully destroys these universes. And Fred, I don't know why you didn't get that trivia question right. I just told you what the answer was.
Yeah.
And then the second recommendation for today is Thor, 29 through 32. I really should have wrote down the years these came out, but these are fairly recent comics because Corvus Glaive is not a very old character. This is by Thorin Grunbeck and Nick Klein. And Corvus Glaive kidnaps Thor's little sister. Hey, Fred, did you know that Thor had a little sister?
No,
Yeah,
I didn't.
neither did I. So he does this because he's trying to use her to get his hands on the Black Infinity Stone. This runs him afoul of Thor, of course, and things don't go particularly well with it for Corvus because he's the bad guy in the story. But he gets some cool action scenes and stuff in this comic, so
I guess that's all he can ask for.
Yeah, that's all he could ask for.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Brad. I guess we've been talking a while. I'm going to cut the episode a little short. Thank you very much to Brandon and Borka for joining us today. It was a lot of fun going to the tournament with you, and I want to do it more often. This was fun. Thank you, everyone out there,
Hold
for
on,
listening to
Brad.
us. Oh,
Brandon is
okay.
Brandon's afraid to
Brandon.
speak up.
Brandon, what would you like to add about Corvus?
If you search Corvus Glaive movie quotes, like from the MCU, there are 4, and 3 of them are pretty grim. So I just wanted to put that out there that he says, "Give up the stones and she lives," meaning that he's in control of whether you live or die. She's not responding. I'm sure that's just talking about Gamora not responding to the radio, but that could also be taken that she's not responding because she's dead. Stand for what you will. You will fall no matter what you stand for. That is absolute perfect Corvus Brave. And then there's at the end when Thanos says, "Lay fire to shoot into our own troops to kill the enemy." He says, "But sire, our troops." So it shows that in addition to having a wife, he does care about his friends.
He kind of doesn't care about his little brother, though. Black Dwarf.
That's his little brother.
That's his little brother.
Well, it's a younger brother.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fair.
Yeah, he's as big. He's so much bigger. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us and listening to us talk about Corvus Glaive and for talking about the Akron Brew Brawl. I hope everyone out there has a wonderful week. Goodbye, everyone.